Morning. We're going to get started here in just a second. I just wanted to take a quick moment to say good morning. My name is Kyle Sullender. I'm the Executive Director of Focus New Jersey, one of the sponsors of this morning's panel. If you're not familiar with us, we are a nonprofit research-based organization here in New Jersey dedicated to developing sound public policy in the areas of economics, higher education, and workforce development. And obviously, it is those last two that brings us here this morning. I have to say, just before we get started, I had the pleasure of sitting in on the prep call for this panel and quickly found myself already scribbling down notes and quotes from these four incredible women about leadership and about self-care and so many other things. And so if that was just a preview of the discussion, then I think you're all in for a real treat this morning. So thank you for all being here. With that, I'll turn it over to our moderator, Catherine Starghill from the New Jersey Council of Community Colleges.
Good morning. So how many of us are awake? Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Very good. Okay, very good. So I am very excited and honored to be here with these four incredible leaders in higher education in the state of New Jersey. They are all presidents of community colleges, and they are as eloquent as they are impactful. They and their colleagues, the other presidents, provide services, education, workforce training to 240,000 students and adult learners across the state, more than any other higher education institutions. And in their capacities, they're not just leaders, they're nurturers. They are caring for and nurturing their communities. I know there's some men in the room, so don't take offense, but it takes a woman to do both, to nurture and lead. And these women show us that every day. I want to very briefly introduce them and just name their institutions, and then we'll get right into the discussion. So first we have Pamela Monaco, president of Ocean County College. Beside her is Barbara Gaba, right here in Atlantic City. She is president of Atlantic Cape Community College. Next to her is Deborah Preston, President Preston of Mercer County Community College. And pulling up the end is President Pugh-Bassett of Camden County College. Ladies, thank you so much for representing our sector. And we're going to get right into it. So because this panel is entitled Navigating Professional Challenges, which you can imagine each of these women have had to do to get to their positions, we're going to start there. Challenges that women face in leadership is always, whether you're not quite a leader yet, once you become a leader and everyone thinks that because you're the boss, you don't have any challenges, they exist. So the first question I'm gonna throw out, and you all can putt the soccer ball or whatever it's called. I guess it's not putt. Okay, anyway. Clearly, I was a cheerleader. I know, don't make fun of me. 7th grade to 12th grade, and my daddy did ask, baby, can you get a scholarship in that? And back then you couldn't. So, and I know that we actually have some athletes on the panel, but my first question is, what are some challenges women in leadership roles face in today's workplace, and how can they be overcome? Who wants to jump in on that first?
Well, I guess I can start off by saying that all of us in all leadership positions, that comes with that. They say heavy is the crown, is that we have to make tough decisions. And sometimes with our constituencies, whether they be faculty, staff, or students, we have to make decisions that people don't like. And that's a very hard challenge to deal with, but we always have to go by what is the mission and what are the values that we are trying to espouse at our college. So I think that frames it up for me in terms of having to make tough decisions, particularly when you're dealing in an environment where resources are limited. Everybody wants a piece of the pie, everybody wants money, this and that. And particularly when funding is cut from the state or from the county or from whatever, we have to reallocate funds. And a particular department may think that they had funding to do this, but when the fundings are cut or changed, it becomes the job of the president to make the final decisions how we're going to reallocate this pie. And having to make those tough decisions and having to give the bad news is a challenge because sometimes people are not very happy. And one of the things I was telling somebody who was talking to me who was aspiring to a leadership position, and one of the things that this person said to me was, "Oh, I want people to like me." Not happening. I said, if you want people to like you, go work in an ice cream shop.
So I'm gonna give y'all the skinny, right? Because we women in here want to know a little bit of, you want the secret sauce, right?
The secret sauce.
So, and I agree with my colleague, Dr. Gaba, and she, by the way, is the most senior person on this panel, not by age, but by
tenure.
By age too.
I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to respect my elders. Okay, so I would say that if we're talking in the context of challenges that women face in particular, I would say that the issue around discernment, knowing when and where to have to apply yourself and express your voice. I've been in spaces where I've been in a room and everybody else is being called by their title except me, and trying to figure out, should I say now that I've had a PhD since 2006, or do I wait until I slap my business card on the table and give it to them, right? So you have to be able to know the time and place, because if you spend all of your time fighting every battle, you'll spend no time doing the things that you need to do, right? So you have to, and it is a very difficult challenge because you'll find yourself in spaces where everybody else is getting the accolades. You know that you're worthy, you know that you've done and contributed, but it might not be the time and place to have to espouse that. Sometimes you have to let your work speak for itself. I say slow and steady wins the race, and actually I just watched a graphic 2 days ago. Somebody sent me a graphic. There was a stallion, a cheetah, and an ostrich. And the stallion and the cheetah were just zooming out, and the ostrich was just hopping along. And at some point, at the halfway point, the stallion and the cheetah got tired, needed to take a break. And here comes the ostrich still hopping along to the point where the ostrich won the race. You have to know when and where to espouse yourself. You have to know when and where to speak up, and know when the time and place is for you to be able to let people know who you are, what you do, and what you've contributed. I've learned that I pick my battles very, very carefully and very, very deliberately. I know my worth, and sometimes I don't have to scream that from the mountaintops. Sometimes I just let them find out in a way when they least expect it. Usually, for example, if I come in a room like this and I'm networking and having conversations and people are not necessarily addressing me or giving me the titling or the respect that I deserve, I wait until they call me up to the front and say, "Well, Dr. Pugh-Bassett." And then watch the people's faces flush like, "Oh my God, I should have respected that before." So, as women, you're going to find yourself in spaces where you are not necessarily given the honor due, but you'll also find yourself at the end of the day proving your worth, showing your worth, and being able to benefit from what you do and who you are in the long run. So don't fret, just know that battles chosen carefully will work out in the end.
Can we transition, because I think this is a good bridge to the next question. How can women build resilience and confidence in environments where they may face bias or discrimination? Because that seemed all wrapped into what you were just saying.
Well, if I can start with that one.
Please.
One of the challenges when I came into my position, and I've been a president for a year, my first presidency, and I followed a man who had been there for over 2 decades. And there was this perception, particularly and we all report to boards, of, well, this is the way things are done, and we expect you to do this, and having to push back and challenge them and say, well, it's a new day. You saw me when you hired me. You interviewed me in person. This was not a surprise. And it's having this incredible self-confidence in yourself. I have a t-shirt that I don't wear to work, but boy, I want to. And that is, underestimate me. That will be fun. And that is what every day it seems that there's somebody who wants to underestimate me. And, similar to the slow and steady, I just go in and I don't always know the answer, but I do have a network, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that,
Yes.
of people that I can trust. And I go to them and I will say, here's a situation, here's what I'm thinking. I will do my due diligence. And then when I have been confirmed that it's the right thing or not, then I can go forth and I have even more confidence. But you have to have that sense. You were chosen, you were in this position, people saw good things about you, and don't let others undermine it. You know your value and your worth, and go forth.
Dr. Preston, I'm coming for you. So because we are going to talk about mentoring, mentorship and networking, but first you have to self-advocate. And I think President Pugh-Bassett mentioned that, certainly President Gaba, and you just mentioned it. But President Preston, can you elaborate on what communication strategies you've used to navigate difficult conversations and assert your perspective without being perceived negatively? You know the word, though, starts with the A.
Yeah.
That's what they use with us.
Yeah. So, is this? Ooh, yes. So, so my PhD is in English, and I taught a lot of composition courses when I was a faculty member. And one of the rhetorical styles that we teach is persuasion. And I think good persuasion is good persuasion. And it doesn't really matter what your gender is if you can fall back on those principles. So, one of the things, we teach our students in writing is find common ground, and then identify the obstacles and why there's another perspective. And that's really important, because nothing drives people crazier than when you make a decision and they think you never considered their point of view. So it's so important to say, I know that many people feel that blah, blah, blah is the right decision, and we can agree on this piece of it, but what you don't understand is how much blah, blah, blah costs, or whatever, because, and then people, and it goes for everything. I mean, I remember my first year as president. I've been president 2 years and a few months. There was this huge brouhaha, as there can only be at a college, about when we were going to have the holiday party.
Oh my goodness. That is not what I thought you were going to say.
Welcome to my world. And my poor assistant was about to pull her hair out. She was new too. She didn't want to upset everybody, right? And the problem was the end of finals ran right up against Hanukkah. And we were like, so people, we don't want to do it during finals, because then people are going to say, you scheduled it and I had a final and I couldn't come, right? And then you didn't want to do it like Hanukkah. People were like, well, you're not respecting my religious observances. I have to be home by Sunday. You're right. So, so I said, you know what? We picked a time that we thought people could get home before sundown. That was the day after, or there was only, we researched it. There were only 4 finals that afternoon, whatever. And I said, put it in the invitation. Put it in. Why we picked this time. We considered this, and this. And this, we got no complaints. Because it's only when people think you didn't think about their perspective that they get all upset. But if you can show, yes, either I already know your perspective because I can, think outside my own brain, or someone's told me that perspective, I think you become much more persuasive, because that's just good persuasion technique. You explain the things that don't work to help support the idea of what is going to work. And I think those techniques, it's for most sane people, and that's not everyone in academia, but for most sane people,
everyone, everywhere.
Yeah, no, it's hard. It's hard to be mad when your perspective was considered but there was a good reason your perspective didn't win.
You
Right?
just taught me something. So I phrase it usually as anticipating, the naysayers and the negativity. And so I try to give a lot of information like attorneys do. But you just phrased it so much better, and that is consider everyone's perspective. I bet if I change my perception to that, I might have even better results.
But they
Look,
have,
as I have staff here.
but you have to close the loop, because if you get people's perspectives and then make a different decision, they say, well, she asked me, but then she ignored me. So that's not, you can't just ask. You have to ask, and then you have to say, I consider this, and this. Here's why this, and this aren't the optimal solution, and this is why we're going with this. Because people hate to be asked their perspective and then ignored. So they have to know you heard them, but there was a reason you went with something else.
That's where I've been failing. Okay.
I think that just to piggyback on what Dr. Preston has said about persuasion and getting other people's perspective, I think that speaks to the fact as to why we spend a lot of time in meetings, because sometimes it takes a long time to get to that point. And I'm particularly thinking about here at our colleges when we have to go through the negotiation process. That's a clear example of being able to communicate, being able to listen to both sides, and that takes a long time. Now, one of the things that I try to do is I'm very conscious about not embarrassing people in public, because that only just puts everybody on the defensive. And when there are issues that might be popping up that we can anticipate before the meeting, I try to meet with that person ahead of time to know where they're at and how it's going to proceed in the meeting. So being able to listen, anticipate the questions ahead of time, so that people feel that they are heard. And I think that even when I've had instances where I've had to speak to people privately, they appreciate that I'm listening and hearing their point of view.
Dr. Gaba, but how many meetings before the meeting are you having?
Plenty, if needed, as needed.
Okay.
As needed.
We call them pre-gaming.
Pre-gaming.
Okay, we need a pre-game meeting before this meeting.
Exactly.
Who needs to be there?
Yeah, it's well worth the time, although it takes a lot of time.
Although it takes a lot of time. So that was great information about self-advocacy and communication styles. Now, can we turn to mentorship and networking? What role can mentorship and networking play in helping women overcome professional challenges and advance their careers?
I think that mentoring is very, very important, because as people are working their way up the rank, they need somebody who's going to be a champion for them, somebody who's going to be a supporter, somebody who can mention their name when they're not in the room. I've had many mentors in my career coming up, and in fact, I never really aspired to be a college president. It wasn't a part of my career plan, but I had people mentoring me along the way, giving me advice, giving me information, and I think it's very, very important to have that going on. Right now, given my experience, since I was mentored by several people, people would give me, some of the people I work for would give me articles about higher education advancement. They would take me to conferences with them inside the college and outside the college, so I could shadow and see how these things work. And it gave me the idea that maybe this is something that I could do. Right now, I mentor about 5 people. Several of the people I've mentored, I've helped them answer some questions about how do I get to the next step of my career. I have children. I can't go back to school. I'm at a point in my career where I'm not going any further. Should I step out of it? Just to have somebody to bounce these things off, somebody with experience. I've been very, very pleased with the people that I've mentored. One of the people that I mentored was a woman who had children, and she wanted to advance in her career. She wanted to go back to get her doctorate degree. I don't have time. I can't do it. I'm this and that. I can't go back to school. So I said, well, maybe you should take something online. Maybe that'll work for you. So as it turned out, she went to the University of Pennsylvania. She did most of the courses online, and she only had to go on a Saturday, not that often. That worked out for her. And just talking it through that you didn't have to go to class every day. She needed to bounce that off. So finally, she got her doctorate degree. I was invited to be on her dissertation committee. She did very, very well. She got back to her job, and a couple of years later, she got to get to another position at Rutgers, and she said this is a dream job for her. But she had to work out how she was going back to school. I mentored somebody else who became he was a dean. He went on to become a vice president in New York City, and now he's a president.
Oh, nice.
Just talking about the career steps. What do I do? How do I prepare for the interview? Just to bounce things off. So that mentoring is very important. I had it, and I think it's very important. I continue to be mentored myself, although I'm a president right now. I don't know everything. But sometimes you need to bounce things off of somebody.
Right.
And it's very, very important to avail yourself of time to meet people. I worked in North Jersey. I was at Union County College for, 15 years? And many of the people that I was working with that I mentored were up there, and I'm now down here in South Jersey. So I make a point of meeting these people halfway in the state just for breakfast, just to see how you're doing, how you're checking in, and they really appreciate it.
So I always tell people that there are 3 people that you need to have in your lives. You need a mentor, a sponsor, and a whole bunch of haters, right? So your mentor is, just as Dr. Gaba shared, someone who can usher you, give you advice, talk to you, get you through some really complicated situations. For me, my sponsor is the person that can allow me access to spaces and places that I would not have on my own. They may not be the same people, they may, right? They may not even be the same gender, the same race and ethnicity, but these are the folks that have access and can get you into spaces and places where you may not normally have access to. And boy, those haters, they help to refine you. They help to check you and make sure, because if you don't have that, if you only have cheerleaders, you don't have a balance and you don't ever self-reflect and check, right? So don't be upset when you have people who are hating on you, because those people, one, could be jealous, of course, and we know that there are people out there that don't want you to succeed, but also those folks can give you a perspective that'll help you reflect and refine and just a self-check so that you don't get out of control. Because when you go into, the higher you get, the more challenging it is for you to really check yourself, and the more difficult it is for you to be able to find that balance, particularly as a woman, because you're fighting a battle that, in addition to the position, in addition to, depending on if you're a woman of color, in addition to your race and ethnicity, and then add to that the fact that you feel like you have to prove yourself. So let those haters do what they're supposed to do, which is to allow you to check yourself. Let your mentor do what he or she's supposed to do, and know that they may go in ebbs and flows. So you may have a mentor for the season, and then you might have to have another mentor for a different season. Your sponsor is all the same. Maybe one in the same, or maybe those folks change from time to time. But know who can speak your name in spaces where you are not at the table. And then, of course, make sure that you offer the same and pay it forward when you get to the point where you can speak someone else's name into those spaces.
But you don't want your mentor and your hater to be the same person.
No.
That would not be
Dr.
good.
Preston, you don't. So, President Pugh-Bassett, I always say, and I've been saying this probably for too long, that's what happens when you have 9 years of therapy as a child, but I'm like a gremlin. And with the negativity from the haters, I grow. I'm a monster. I grow. I get better and stronger, which surprisingly upsets the haters when you say that to them. But it is what happens, right? It strengthens you. It strengthens you. So I think we're flowing into the area of support and fostering inclusivity. How can women in leadership roles foster inclusivity and support for other women in the workplace? Some of the women out in the audience might be interested to hear from you what they should be looking for, maybe what they should be doing to pull up women behind them, and certainly to carve their way into leadership.
I have something, but I want to get Pam. So
I'll pick on Pam next.
All right. Yeah,
President Monaco.
Don't let her just sit down there and get a paycheck.
Pay for this presentation. My disclaimer to the camera: we are not being paid for this presentation.
I was kidding.
Right.
Yeah. So my mic is going in and out. That's okay. So I think once you're in a position of power, it is your moral obligation to pull, and not just other women, but as a white woman, I worry a lot about inclusivity from a racial and ethnicity perspective, and I think we're in a unique position to call out instances of bias and instances of. I was in a presentation that one of my VPs had prepared. He is a black man, and he had prepared a presentation. It was a PowerPoint, and he'd put some stock cartoon characters in there that were students, and the students, I forget what they were doing. The students, and we got to the end of the presentation, and I said, "Why were all those cartoon students white?"
Mm. You
Because,
didn't expect that from you.
but that's my job. You know, I'm like, don't show this to anybody else until you find some different cartoon characters. And he was like, I didn't think anybody else would notice. I'm like, people notice. You know, people notice. And it's the same for, and it's the same for supporting women. I learned a great lesson in my previous job. I was in a meeting. We were interviewing vendors for a project, and we had this all women firm doing a presentation for this project, and honest to God, the men in the room were asking questions they hadn't asked of the other vendors, and they weren't letting them finish. And I learned this great lesson. Our VP of HR, she said, could the men in the room please just shut up and let the women doing this presentation finish it and then ask your questions? And they did. And you know, we were the VP. She could get away with that. We knew each other. We worked together every day. You don't always put it that bluntly, but she did, and I'll never forget that. And the women on the team making the presentation were just like, wow, someone stood up for us. You know?
So I think this might be where I tell my story.
Oh, this is the story. Oh, you got to tell the story.
Oh,
So-
I missed it on the pre-call. Okay.
Yeah, so I am the first person of color to head my institution, and found myself in a situation a few months ago where we were being visited for our nursing program accreditation, and the woman who led the visit was a Black woman. And she came and she sat, and we were doing our wrap up. I had a table full of all my team members, my VP, dean, and some other staff that were part of the nursing program. And, you know, she asks if there are any additional questions anybody has. I look around the room and, you know, just to let my team ask any questions, and nobody had any questions. So I said, well, I just want to thank you for coming, and talked about how proud we were of the program and such. And she looked at me, she said, thank you. And then she said, President, do you have any additional questions? And I said, well, okay. So I looked at my dean. She leaned over, talked straight to my dean, who was a white male, bald head, red beard. And I said, Mr. President, do you have any additional questions? And he turned beet red.
Right.
And I waited to see how my team would respond. And immediately they jumped on her and said, that is not the president, right? And she was mortified. And her response was, oh, I'm so sorry. I was on your website. I saw your picture. You just look so different.
You looked like a white man with
bald
a
head with a red
beard.
Just a little different. Maybe I wore my hair a little different. So, but the takeaway from that, and she was definitely more, I mean, she dug herself into a hole. But the takeaway from that, so I called a meeting the day after with the whole team. And I said to them, this is the space that you may enter into someday. For those of you who are women, people of color, or you may be ushering students who are from those particular populations into these spaces. You need to know what that felt like. There was no better way for me to show them what that felt like than for them to be in the room at the time it happened, right? That I am not excluded from having that kind of experience. So don't think that just because my title says president that people don't judge me because I'm a woman of color. And that was by another woman of color. That wasn't even by, so I mean, I've experienced it. That wasn't my first rodeo, but surely they were mortified and didn't know how to handle that. And I said, guys, that's not new to me. Like, they couldn't understand why I wasn't,
Why
you
were
upset.
like, yeah,
And it was
par
just
for the
like, yeah.
course.
So I just, because I have a tendency to make you sit in it, right? just let it marinate. And so it took a little bit before I just turned and looked at my dean, and he's just like, are you gonna say
And I
something?
know him. He's such a nice guy.
He's like, are you gonna say something? Like, I'm gonna just let this one right here. She's sinking in her chair right now, right? And I'm not gonna let her. I'm just gonna see how this plays out. And it was so thick in the room, but I needed my team to experience that, because if they did not, I could show you better than I can tell you, right?
Yeah.
And so if you are a woman of color in this room, or a woman that is the first in whatever organization or structure that you're going to be in, just know that you'll find yourself in those spaces.
Right.
And you got to, first of all, feel confident. We've been talking about this over and over, confident in yourself to be able to let that sit. Because it's not a comfortable situation. I'm not saying that I'm used to, feeling that way, but you gotta let it sit, because there is a lesson to be learned around with the people around the room. And the takeaway for me wasn't to jump on her myself. It was to see if my team understood what was happening, to see what they would say and how they would say it. And then we would debrief to talk about it, because I could not let that moment, that teachable moment, go by without unpacking that. Because here we are, educators who are going to be ushering people into those types of spaces.
So that's a great example of how you took on the posture of the organization the day after, right? To call them all in and say, what did we learn yesterday, right? Which flows really well into this next question for Dr. Monaco. How can organizations better support women leaders in navigating systemic challenges and unconscious bias? I'm sorry.
Well, thank you. Yeah, save that tough one for me.
I'm sorry.
It's a real challenge, because organizations move very, very slowly. And, I look at my organization that they, for some reason, decided, we do need change. So they made that change. But then once the change came in, it was like, oh no, I'm not so sure about this. And part of it then is incumbent upon this new person to help move this organization that perhaps now is rather reluctant, because who likes change? We sort of like our comfortable patterns. And part of what I have to do a lot of work with is educating a board. And the board, our board has been around for a very long time. We are in a county that is undergoing a lot of change, and this is hard for many people. And for me, it is, I keep bringing to the board, I keep bringing to the institution how much everything around us is changing, and that we should be one of the beacons of this and leading this change. And the example that I would give is that Ocean County is seeing a tremendous influx of Hispanic people. And we are seeing this on our campus. We are a very traditional, very white, very conservative county. And this is changing just about everything. And we are embracing this. We have task forces on the campus to really think about how are we living our mission of being for the community as the community changes. So I'm constantly educating the board. I bring in people from the high schools who are the superintendents who are able to talk about what they're seeing, so that it's always in people's face, basically, in a very nice way. And then keep maneuvering and reminding people that what is our obligation, what is our mission. And then I look at the people on my staff and try to really pay attention. I do a lot of walking the campus, because I'm new. I want to be visible. I want to make sure that people know that I'm approachable. But it allows me to see and hear really good things that are happening on campus, and to help promote people and be able to say, that is a great project. Let's talk about this. And then I have them come and do a presentation to the board so that we just keep seeing that there are good things happening. And it's sort of this steady accretion of change that is happening. And the other day when I had to present to the foundation board, they were saying, this is some of the most exciting things. This is wonderful. And I thought, oh, praise the Lord. This is good. And, but like I was saying at the very beginning, you have to have that confidence in the mission of your institution, in your personal mission, and keep moving forward. And then finding perhaps in other places where there are supporters who can come in, because sometimes, as we know, you can't be a prophet in your own land. And when you can find those others who can also carry that message, and then you just find those like-minded individuals.
Well, certainly there have been all kinds of kernels and nuggets of wisdom that we've heard as these wonderful presidents have responded to the questions, but now you get to ask a question that you have on your mind, because it is Q&A time. And if you do have a question, please come to the mic so that we could all benefit from your question and the answer from these women leaders. Come on up. No questions about the average age of being 81 though, but.
No more questions about that. My name is Jennifer Edmonds. I'm the Dean in the School of Business and Digital Media at Georgian Court University. Can you briefly summarize your path to the presidency? Because I can tell that they're not all the same.
Okay, I have been in academics. Let me see how I started. I was always been in higher education. Okay, I was at the State Department of Higher Education in Trenton. I was the Associate Director of Government Relations when we had the Department of Higher Ed. Then I went on to become the Dean at Camden County College. I was the Dean of Academic and Student Services. I went on to become at Union County College, my previous college. I was there for 15 years. I was the Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs. So I had a lot of experience in academic affairs, student affairs, government relations, strategic planning, all the way up through my career. And I've been involved in higher ed for about 35 years and come with that background.
So not quite the same pathway, of course. And I'm sure you're probably looking at me saying I'm the one that's different from everybody else, right? I've been in education all my life. Started off as an advocate with Jeffrey Canada, Harlem Freedom Schools. Came in through Temple University, taught African American Studies and African dance. I was a dancer. And ended up going into administration for Upward Bound programs, worked at the Department of Education for 23 years, worked at Community College of Philadelphia for 1 year, and then came to Camden County College. Before this position, I was the Executive County Superintendent of Schools for Camden County and worked in DOE in that capacity, and that subsequently put me on the board for the college because that was inherent in the position. And then I came to the college in the capacity of vice president, institutional advancement, and then moved into the president position.
President Monaco?
I'm a very traditional academic. When I took a long time to finish my dissertation, partly because I loved graduate school, and finally my chair said, "What are you trying to be? Graduate student emeritus?" No. So I finished and had started teaching at a community college as an adjunct and loved it. Loved the diversity of the student population. My first job was in a community college, and I had started before long. I was chair, I was assistant division chair, and then I had reached a point where I thought, am I going to be happy not having challenged myself to teach at a university? So I then took a job in the Mississippi Delta at a historically black college and university as a chair, and had an amazing experience, absolutely amazing, because I was a stranger in a strange land, in a town that thought I was a northern agitator, and then at a school
you
that
even
was
said it with the accent. I like that.
Yes, I can do that.
We're going to call on that later.
Thank you. and had a good time there. But I am not one who has been deliberate in my career path. I've often said to people, it's serendipity. That opportunity comes and I think, oh, wouldn't this be interesting? So then I had gone to the University of Maryland, now called Global Campus, when it was going through some tremendous changes. Was there. I was at UMass Amherst because I thought, I want to see what a Research One is like. And before I came here, I was at City Colleges of Chicago, and I had taken a rather large pay cut and sort of a demotion, if you will, because I had reached a point in my life. I had been a graduate dean, and I thought, what am I doing? Does this really make a difference? And no offense to anyone who's a graduate dean, but you don't impact lives the way you do at a 2-year school. So I went to City Colleges and started as an associate dean, and within a year I was the acting VP, and then I was the VP. I know, I told you, serendipity. And was very happy with that. And several people said, well, you should consider a presidency. So I thought, well, what the heck? So I sent out my resume, and here we are. So it was, and I will tell you, I miss the classroom every day, every day. And it's part of why I'm always out on the campus, because I don't want to just see students when there's a problem. I want to be with them and remind myself why we are here and how, in my position, I can help advance students' dreams.
President Preston.
I've been in community college. It doesn't work.
Oh,
Teamwork makes the dream work.
that's right. Thank you.
Aw, see? So I've been in community
That was
college.
leadership, you all.
That was leadership, and that was helping out a sister.
Yeah.
So I've been in community college my whole life. I started as an adjunct professor at a community college in Georgia where I grew up. I started doing that adjunct work while I was still finishing my PhD, long distance. After being adjunct for a year, I got hired as a full-time faculty member. I was at that institution, Georgia Perimeter College. Now it's Perimeter College at Georgia State University. They keep changing it. I was there for 14 years. I became a tenured full professor there. I did department chair. I was department chair when I was 29. This is important. I went to one of these women leadership things. And someone said to me, it was like one of these week-long things, and someone said to me, you're going to be a great college president one day. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. So then I became a campus provost, which down in Georgia, you're in charge of the campus. It was a big campus. It was like 7,000 students, bigger than my current college. I was a campus provost. And then I did a year-long fellowship with the American Council on Education. And one of the things I learned there was that maybe I did want to be a college president. That's what that program's for, to convince you to be a college president. So I took a job at Montgomery College in Maryland as Dean for the Arts. I was there for 11 years. There's no coincidence. That's how long it took my oldest daughter to pretty much get through school because she had anxiety disorder. I couldn't move her around. We didn't talk about impact of family, but that was one of my impacts. Then when she graduated and I could move, I went to Raritan Valley Community College as the VP for academics. I was there for 5 years, and then I came to the presidency at Mercer about 2 years ago. So community college my whole life.
I think the lesson in all that is that there's no scripted way to journey into this in this type of position or any other position with which you aspire to achieve. So I always tell people that your destiny is ordained. When you fight it, you miss out on the opportunity to be able to get the nuggets you need along the way to prepare you for whatever it is that you are destined to do. So take what you can out of what you experienced throughout your journey and make sure that you use that, because each of us needed whatever pathway we took in order to be in these specific positions at these specific institutions, because Pamela's journey may not have worked for Camden County. My journey may not have worked for Ocean, but there was something about the journey that we each took that prepared us well for our respective journeys.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Oh, here we have one. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Adriana Santiago, and I'm a Camden County College. Hi, I'm Adriana Santiago, and I'm a Camden County College student. My question is, before getting to where you ladies are today, how did you manage and cope during your development and not just give up during your challenges?
That's the hard question that I didn't have on my list.
Remaining optimistic and having networks of people that you can call, because as we go through these challenges, if we've established a network and people that we can call upon, I think that's been helpful. I think of one of the major challenges that we all had was the pandemic and COVID. How we were going to keep our institutions running, how we were going to maintain the academic and business continuity during a period of time that took us all by storm. And I think that one of the things that helped me was being able to call the people in my network and say, how are you doing this? How are you doing that? And of always staying optimistic. Myself, I'm a very prayerful person. So that just sort of kept me going through the challenges.
So I am a woman of very, very deep faith, and draw upon that for my own strength and inspiration. I also am a woman who has a therapist, so there's nothing wrong with it. I check in with her because she helps me to regulate, right? I'm not going there because I'm crazy. I promise you I'm not. Maybe a little, but it's really to regulate. I need to kind of center myself, ground myself, and sometimes it's important to have someone from the outside be able to help you do that, because it comes without the emotion and the intimacy that you have with the relationships you have with people. So, you know, if ever you feel like, you know, this taboo, just know that that is going to help you, because it is a very difficult job to handle. To Barbara's point earlier, heavy is the head that wears the crown. Sometimes folks don't understand how hard this job is. You are putting fires out every day from the moment you walk into the room.
And different kind of fires. I have
Every
had
day.
to call, or maybe I ran into you, Dr. Preston, about a class that a training session that was delayed because of an air conditioning unit in one of her buildings. Like, you don't think that the president of a college has to deal with that. And she was like, okay, I'm kind of aware of that. And all I could think of was, why is she aware? I just wanted her to call, like, whoever should know about it.
Well, I had a car crash into my parking garage in my Camden City campus. I got the call at 4 a.m. The car exploded, not exploded like fire, but on fire, caught fire, and damaged 3 classrooms who happen to be the most technological classrooms, my audio production, 2 computer labs, 4 a.m, 3 days before the semester started. So when I tell you, so I said, I'm putting out fires. I'm literally putting out fires. That's my second fire. Yes. Literal fire. Yep.
Oh,
We've had
my
floods.
goodness.
So the way I don't give up, I'm not really proud of this answer. I'm not proud of this answer because it's really my own mental illness. And I say that jokingly and seriously. My therapist, and therapy is an important thing. My therapist, probably when I was 27, said, Debbie, you have classic rescuer syndrome. It is my job to save the world. And no amount of therapy has been able to get that idea out of my head. So when I feel like giving up, and this is not healthy, I'm not advocating for this, but she asked the question and I'm going to answer it. I'm going to answer it honestly. When I think about giving up, I'm like, well, who the hell is going to save the world if you give up, Debbie Preston? It's not pretty. You know, you don't want to be my husband, believe me.
There was a question about spouses, an offhanded question that, of course, I caught.
Well, first, I think it was when you said it was about when you ask someone's opinion and then you don't take it. My question was, that doesn't count towards your spouse, right? Because I never take his advice. I ask his advice to do the opposite, usually. But I do have a
Of
serious
course,
question.
his colleagues are in the room.
Yeah, I know, and he's probably.
Please don't report back to Wayne.
He knows. He knows.
Okay.
I was going to ask a similar question as this young lady here, but I'm going to expand on it a little bit. Right. Well, first of all, see, I'm getting nervous, and if any of you were in the assertive session yesterday, these are my boss's boss's boss. Right?
Literally.
That's who these ladies are. Literally. So for me
Yes.
to get up and ask them a question, I am very nervous right now, but I'm doing it, right? I know, because they're just regular people.
'Cause her boss
that's
called
what
her
you
out.
realize. They're just regular people who are giving us great advice. So, if you're in this crowd and you're not at the end of your career, or maybe like me, looking towards the end of your career, because I am 56, so I'm hopefully going to retire in the next 10 years, maybe-ish. But when others see good things in you or see those leadership qualities, like you were told you're going to make a great college president one day, but you didn't anticipate being that. So how do we take the things that others see in us and turn that into, whether it's inspiration or just recognizing that I do have these qualities, and now what do I do with it? So how do you take that?
Well, just to answer your question about qualities, it could be other people see it. Here's where I'm going with this. My mother always said, always do your best work because you never know who's watching. I sort of came into the presidency by accident because I wasn't aspiring for this job. I wasn't applying for this job. I was at Union County College. I was a provost. I was very happy there. I was in the comfort zone, and we didn't talk about comfort zones. I get a call from the search firm. Dr. Gaba, do you know that we're looking for a president at Atlantic Cape, and are you interested? I said, well, I'm very comfortable here. I didn't know you were looking, and I'm not interested. End of story. They call me back. The search is getting ready to close. Have you given this any further consideration? I said, no, I already told you I wasn't looking. And, I didn't know you were looking for a president. So I said, what the heck? Let me just apply for the job. Okay. And they kept calling me back because I wasn't applying for this job. And then when I went to the interview, went through all the things, I was selected. I said, oh, okay. And I remember what my mother said. Somebody recommended me for that position to the search firm. Up to today, I don't know who that person was. I don't know who it was, but my mother said, and always do your best work because you never know who's watching.
That is a great point to end this session. Thank you to our community college presidents for all of that incredible advice and guidance. And thank you to this audience for the great questions. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the forum.